Welcome to Binge Breakthrough, the podcast designed to help you finally break through the barriers that keep you stuck, feeling out of control around food. I'm Master Certified Coach Jane Pilger, and I want you to know that no matter how long you've been struggling or what you've tried, food freedom is possible, and I'm here to show you how. After years of therapy, eating disorders treatment, restrictive diets, and reading all the books, I was still stuck in the on-again, off-again cycle of restricting and binging until I was able to see it all from a new perspective that changed everything. Each week, I will share the strategies, tools, and mindset that allowed me to overcome my decades-long battle with binge eating. Your journey to body trust starts now. Let's dive in. Hello, trusted listener. Welcome to Binge Breakthrough. I consider you a trusted listener because I trust that you are here for a reason. I trust that you are going to receive something insightful and impactful on your journey with food. So if you happen to listen to last week's episode, you know that we are celebrating 100 episodes of the Binge Breakthrough podcast. And I'm turning this into a month-long celebration. If you happen to be listening live when these episodes air in October of 2024, we're turning this 10th month into kind of a top 10 celebration. Not only are we celebrating 100 episodes of the podcast, but we're going to all month long talk about top 10, the 10 things, there's always going to be a theme around the number 10 for this month while we celebrate. And actually, just this week on the blog, the article that I wrote is along with this 10 theme, 10 common triggers for binge eating and how to overcome them. So if you aren't receiving my blog on a weekly basis over at The Peaceful Eater, be sure to sign up because not only do I have these podcasts for you weekly, but I also have a weekly blog post that can give you additional information on your journey with food. I'll put a link to this week's blog post in the show notes so that you can check it out. And if that's something you'd like to receive in your email, on a weekly basis, you can sign up for that there. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about 10 questions to ask yourself before, during, and after a binge. Now, I wanted to talk about this because questions are so powerful. Your brain will always go to work to answer any question that it asks or that you ask it. The brain doesn't know the difference between a helpful question and an unhelpful question. But I'll give you an example of an unhelpful question. What's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? These are unhelpful questions. But we can ask very powerful questions that will help us get to answers that can then help us know what is the next step on our journey. So in this episode, I'm going to give you 10 questions to ask yourself before, during, and after a binge. Now, if I could distill this down to one question, the number one question, if you don't remember anything else, any other question, but you only remember one, this question will work before, if you are having that desire to eat a lot of food. It will work during, while you're eating, and it will work after, in those moments afterwards. Here's the question, the number one key question. How does this make sense? I love this question because it invites our brain to make sense of what's happening. And it always makes sense. There is always a very good reason why we do what we do with food. And I promise you, the reason is not because you are broken. It's not because there is something wrong with you. It always makes sense. And if we ask the question, how does this make sense? Automatically, your brain will go to work to answer that question. So if you don't remember any other questions and all you want is one question, you can literally stop this podcast right now and have a very powerful question for you. How does this make sense? But let's go on. We're going to talk about 10 questions. So we still have 9 more to go. I'm going to give you 3 questions for before, like when you're having that desire, you notice yourself thinking about eating a lot of food. You all of a sudden want to get in the car and go to the drive-thru, go to the bakery. You want to go to the pantry, whatever it is. 3 questions for before, 3 questions while you're eating, and 3 questions after. Okay, so we have our key question. How does this make sense? You can ask this anytime. Now, let's go to before. You're having this, you're kind of thinking about eating. It could be anything. Sometimes for me, it might show up as like, I just notice this doesn't happen to me very often anymore, but there were a few times that I would notice we would go to the grocery store and all of a sudden I would be like, wow, I am noticing a lot more at the grocery store, like more foods are kind of, I know you know what this feels like when it almost feels like the foods are kind of talking to you. They just feel like, wow, I'm noticing things a lot more. That could even be like, I'm starting to really think about, maybe I'm having these ideas of eating foods that I don't normally eat. Okay, questions for before. Here's question number 1. What do I think this food or the food will do for me? What do I think the food will do for me? So if all of a sudden I'm like having these pictures, I'm imagining eating certain food or eating just large volumes of food, beautiful question to ask yourself. What do I think this will do for me? This can kind of give you a little look under the hood of what is it that I'm really looking for? What do I want this food to do for me? Do I think it's going to numb me out? Do I think there could be any number of answers to this question? What do I think it will do for me? Maybe I think it's going to calm me down. Maybe I think it's going to help me relax. Maybe I think it's going to just help me disconnect or help me not think about something. Maybe I think it will allow me to eat something I don't normally get to eat. What do I think it will do for me? Here's question number 2. What other options do I have? I love this question because it opens up the idea that food isn't the only solution here. If I'm identifying what I think the food's going to do for me, and I'm like, you know what, I think this is really just going to help me calm down. Okay, I've discovered what I really want is not necessarily the food. What I'm really needing is to calm down. Then if I ask the question, what other options do I have? Now I'm opening up to other possibilities where food isn't the only option. Now I'm seeing, there may be other options here. Another beautiful question to ask yourself. What am I afraid will happen if I don't eat? This is a great question to ask yourself to really help yourself understand what is it that I'm thinking will happen if I don't eat. I won't know what to do with myself. I might explode. I might say something I'm going to regret. I might not be able to get through the day. It could be a number of different things. What am I afraid will happen if I don't eat? This is a beautiful way to just bring in awareness because a lot of times it's more, we kind of have this sense of like, I can't do it. I can't handle it. I can't stand this feeling. But we don't ask the question, what am I really afraid will happen if I don't eat? It's a great question to ask yourself. All right. So those are the 3 questions before, while you're having this desire, the cravings, the imaginings of eating. What do I think the food will do for me? What other options do I have? And what am I afraid will happen if I don't eat? All right. Now let's move on to some questions you can ask yourself while you are eating. You are in the act of eating. Now, this is the hardest time to actually ask yourself questions. A lot of times at this point, we've already disconnected. Maybe we've dissociated ourselves. Maybe we have experienced a level of perceived threat in our bodies where it's like, I'm turned off. So it's not always possible to ask yourself questions while you are eating, but it is possible. And the more you practice this, the more you practice bringing awareness into the experience of eating and not allowing yourself to just fully turn the lights off, the more you will have the ability to ask yourself these questions. So this might look like in the beginning, you don't even think about it. Then a little bit later, you might actually think the question, but you don't actually stop to answer it. Then over time, you might think the question and actually stop to just decipher what is the answer. Now, we don't ask these questions so that we won't eat or so that we will stop eating. We ask these questions to bring in some awareness, to bring in some more options and some flexibility for us. All right, so here's the questions that you can ask while you are eating. Question number 1, what do I really need right now? This is a beautiful question to ask yourself to start getting in touch with your needs. What is it that I really need? Maybe I really need a break. Maybe I really need to just go outside. Maybe I really need some space from whatever this is that I'm working on that feels so challenging. Maybe I need some space from this person where maybe I'm experiencing some conflict. Maybe I really need, it could be any number of things. What do I really need right now? Even if you don't do anything to address that need, being able to ask the question and identify it is very powerful. All right, question number 2. Can I create some space between myself and the food? Now, again, this might not always feel possible. It might not always even be possible, but when you can even ask the question about creating some space, when you can create some space, this is a very powerful thing because it gives your logical brain time to come back on board. Typically, when we're eating in a way that's very disconnected, that is in kind of like that, I'm binging, I'm totally disconnected, I'm turning the lights off on myself. A lot of times it's more of that survival state of our brain that is really taken over. What we want to do is bring the logical brain back on board. And the best way to do this is by creating a little bit of space. We can do that in a number of ways, but just asking yourself the question, can I create some space? Any amount of space between myself and the food. All right, third question. Can I bring some awareness into this experience? Now, this can look any number of ways. If you are used to when you start eating, when you start a binge, you pretty much just kind of black out, you dissociate, you turn the lights off on yourself, and you don't even come back to until much later when we've got the empty wrappers, when we're, pretty much done. If we can bring awareness into this experience, this might look like becoming aware of what I'm thinking while I'm eating. Becoming aware of the tastes and the textures of the food. Do I even like this food? I cannot even tell you how many times, and for those of you who struggle with binge eating, with eating large volumes of food in a short period of time, I am sure you've had this experience where it's like, I don't even like this, but I'm still eating it and it feels like I can't stop. If you can just bring some awareness into it, awareness of what are the textures anyway? What am I noticing about what's happening in my mouth? What am I noticing about the flavors of this food? Can I discern? Can I become aware of what I'm actually thinking? What are the sentences that are going through my mind right now? Any amount of awareness into the experience is so powerful because it gives you something to work with. Awareness, remember, awareness is the first step to change. So if I can bring some awareness into the experience, now I know what I'm working with, then I can use this information to then develop a plan for the next time that this happens. So bringing awareness into the experience is very powerful. This is so different than just keeping the lights off and we don't come back at all until it's over. So bringing that awareness in is a very powerful process. All right, so those are our questions while we are eating. What do I really need right now? Can I create some space between myself and the food just for a little while? Can I bring some awareness into this experience? The other thing you could do with this, can I bring some awareness, is what amount of awareness can I bring in? Sometimes asking a yes or no question like this, can I bring some awareness? Can I create some space? Those are both yes or no questions. So even as I'm looking at this and as I'm saying this out loud, I might actually even shift these questions to say, what amount of awareness can I bring into this experience? That allows me to find some awareness instead of it like the black and white, like, nope, can't bring any awareness. Nope, can't create space. Then I've shut myself off. So I'm actually going to shift these questions. So what amount of awareness can I bring into this experience? What amount of space can I create between myself and the food? So this opens us up to any amount versus the yes, I can, no, I can't. I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. I'm just going to keep eating. All right, let's move into our questions for after the eating experience. Great question is, what do I need right now? Now, my favorite question for after a binge is our number one key question, which is, how does this make sense? So we've already asked that question. Remember, that's our number one question. We can do that before, during, or after. Next question is, what do I need right now? So this is different than like, what did I need in the moment? What do I need right now? With a belly full of food, wherever I am, what do I need right now? I might need some water. I might need some gentle movement. I might need to reach out to someone who understands, to someone who can help me make sense of this, to someone who can get me out of the shame and the judgment that I so naturally go into after a moment like this with food. What do I need right now? Next question. What can I learn from this? I also love this question because it's like it puts your brain to work on learning from it. If I combine this with how does this make sense and what can I learn from this, this is a very powerful combination. What can I learn? Maybe I can learn, oh, if I go more than X number of hours without eating, I get really hungry. And if I get that hungry, it's really hard for me to not overeat or eat really quickly or eat a large amount of food when I do get to eat the next time. That's something that I can learn from this. What can I learn from this? When I am working on a project and I'm stuck in something and I have this desire to get up and go eat, what I really need is just space from the project. It's not the food itself, it's the space. So what can I learn from this? Now, we can combine this question with the third question, which is, what would I do differently next time? I love this question because it allows for the do-over. So what can I learn from this? I can learn that going too many hours without eating sets me up to be really hungry, which then sets me up to potentially overeat. So what would I do differently next time? Maybe I would bring a snack with me. Maybe I would look ahead at my schedule and realize, oh yeah, it's going to be a long period of time between the next time that I have the opportunity to eat. So maybe if I can't have a snack, maybe I would eat a larger meal at my previous meal to make sure that I had enough to get me through to the next meal if I'm not able to have a snack. What would I do differently? Maybe I would go for a walk, reach out and talk to somebody before I go and I eat. What would I do differently? There's so many different things that we could do differently. So I love to ask the question, what would I do differently if I had a do-over? Now, when you get a do-over, when you ask yourself, what would I do differently? The thing you want to do is not change anything else about what happened. So if you're working on a work project that feels really frustrating, that's still going to be a frustrating situation. If somebody said something to you that was really challenging for you, or you're going through a difficult family relationship or an uncertain diagnosis or a medical issue that's really creating some uncertainty for you, those things are still happening. When you ask, what would I do differently? When we think about the do-over, everything else in your life, every other circumstance stays the same. How would I respond differently next time? So we take how it makes sense. We take what we learned from it, and then we decide, what would I do differently? This already puts your brain to work on the next change. What can I shift? How can I adjust so that next time is different? All right. These are 10 powerful questions to ask yourself before, during, and after a binge. I'm going to review them for you one more time. Our number one key question: how does this make sense? Questions for before: what do I think the food will do for me? What other options do I have? And what am I afraid will happen if I don't eat? During: what do I really need right now? What amount of space can I create between myself and the food? And what amount of awareness can I bring into this experience? And then after: what do I need right now? What can I learn from this? And what would I do differently next time? I hope these questions are powerful for you and helpful for you. If you actually put these into practice, your brain will go to work to create powerful answers for you. Now, I've given you 10 questions here, and I actually have a download for you that is a list of, I believe there are 18 questions on this download. There are 6 questions in each area: before, during, and after. Some of them are similar to what I reviewed in this podcast episode. Some of them are different. If you want to get this download, go to janepilger.com/questions and get your download today. I will put a link in the show notes so you can always just click on that. And also, I want to remind you, if you are listening live in October of 2024, I am giving away $100 twice for people who review the podcast and also submit questions that you would love to have responded to on the podcast. There will be a link in the show notes to give you all of the details, but you can submit your responses to me by October 31st, 2024 to be eligible to win. And I'm going to draw those winners on November 1st. So get in on that. All right. I hope this was helpful for you, and looking forward to next week's episode, where I'm going to share with you 10 things that I would tell my younger self. I'll see you then. Thank you for listening to Binge Breakthrough. You can find the show notes and any resources mentioned at bingebreakthrough.com. If you like this episode, subscribe to have future episodes delivered to you each Wednesday. And remember, your 5-star rating and review will help others discover these life-changing concepts. See you next week.